call the roll to begin the meeting, please.
Mr. Benton?
Here.
Mrs. Booher?
Here.
Mrs. Davis?
Here.
Mrs. Thomas?
Here.
Mr. Swager?
Here.
We've already read the notice. If
Read
you're
the
okay,
notice of the
and it's
meeting.
same,
Yep.
except for the organizational. It's all the same. And as a reminder, we have 3 minutes in here. It's the same as it's always been if there's public comment per person.
Yep. And we'll do Resolution 2501-008, adoption of the agenda.
The only thing I want to do is I want to make one small change to the agenda.
Okay.
I've been keeping the board updated about the
The GMP.
the GMP. I want to add presentation after our first presentation. So there'll be a second presentation, and we'll just call it update : building projects. And I'll be the primary presenter for that. We'll have this. You did GMP 1, guaranteed maximum price 1 for our high school edition at the December board meeting. We have a second presentation that is what they call GMP 2, and then we'll have people from our construction team here to give a presentation and answer questions. But that'll be their second presentation. And that's all I have for changes to the agenda.
Okay, thank you. So we're adding a presentation. Any other comments on the agenda? Can I get a motion to adopt?
Let me do resolution 25-01 is 008 is a motion adoption of the agenda.
Can we get a motion to adopt?
So moved. A second.
Call the roll, please.
Yes.
Mrs. Davis?
Yes.
Mr. Benton?
Yes.
Mr. Swager?
Yes.
Mrs. Thomas?
Yes.
Any public remarks? Okay. Moving on to presentations.
Okay, so we call district spotlight, but we kind of euphemistically I figured out, but it's Board Appreciation Month. And like we've done in the past, we wanted to show you a little bit about what all of your actions result in and all the good work. So we are going to start with our elementary school. We have a presentation from Mrs. Wagner. She'll lead, and we have some students and going to walk you through, and then all the buildings will provide an update, and then we'll have some things after all the building presentations. So Mrs. Wagner, we'll start with you. Is your mic on, by the way? There's a.
Can you hear me now?
Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Well, thank you for having me tonight. I'm excited to be here and share some wonderful things with you. If you remember, last year I came to a special board meeting and we talked about the science of reading. And so through all of that, we ended up adopting, and we wanted to thank you for that, Wit and Wisdom. So we want to share some information about that tonight. So just to review, the simple view of reading, for those of you who don't know, has two parts, and the board has been wonderful with current with legislation, expectations, and what's best in reading research. So we have a word recognition part, which is decoding, and then we have a language comprehension, which is understanding and background knowledge. You have to have both in order to really learn to read. And so I'd like to share some information tonight about Wit and Wisdom. I think it was 3 years ago now, the board adopted Foundations, which is our decoding side. And so last year, we adopted the materials for Wit and Wisdom, and we're doing a slow rollout this year. But I will have to brag on the staff for just a minute. We said they had to do one module this year. Most everybody has fully adopted and are just continuing to go now into module 2. So we'll start with kindergarten, and I have Mrs. Abbott here just to show you. This is from our parent and family site, but these are the units in kindergarten. The 5 senses is the first module, then Once Upon a Farm, followed by America Then and Now. And if we get to it, which year 1, we have to pace, it's the continents. And so each of these modules are based on books that are shared learning experiences, but then also essential questions. So for example, module 1 is we'll study the 5 senses, studying how they lay a foundation for knowledge in human biology. but then learn how we see, hear, taste, touch, and smell as we ask the question, how do our senses help us to learn? Yeah, did you go to your slide?
Hi, I'm Kristen Abbott, I teach kindergarten. We have started our second unit, which as you saw was all about farm animals and the farm. One thing that we've been doing, we've been reading some informational texts about farm animals and how they help us with their different jobs. We were kind of given this task they had to write different facts that they learned. First, I was like, all right, I guess we're going to dive right in. We're going to get to writing. I put these cards in their hand and I was just absolutely amazed with what they could do. As you can see here, the students did a really great job of taking what they knew to draw pictures, label pictures, write words, and write sentences about everything that they learned about how farm animals help us. In here, and Hogan is going to do his own writing for his cards about what he learned from farm animals.
I am the dog. I make the sheep go to different places. I am the chicken. I make eggs. I am the pig. I make people eat bacon.
So it's really cool to see. Thank you, Hogan. So it's just really cool to see the different progression of how they're taking what they have learned and putting it in their own writing. So thank you.
Excellent. Thank you.
And so next we're going to talk about the first grade modules. And so module 1 was a world of books. And we have creature features, which is what they're working on now, followed by powerful forces. And then we hope we get to Cinderella stories of Cinderella around the world. So I'll introduce Mrs. Hamilton. She was also on our selection committee that went out to observe in other buildings as we were selecting which materials to go with.
Hi, yes, I'm Mrs. Hamilton, and I was super excited about this program, for one, being on the committee, and two, we started with module 1, which was a world of books. The kids looked into finding out how books change lives around the world and how children around the world get books. So we started with Tomas, and then we learned about the Biblioburo. We learned about ways that children get books from all over. We learned that some kids just don't have the same access to books, and we learned about narrative reading. Then we wrote our own narrative and our own story of how a child didn't have books and how they got books in that story. So I have Coco here to share with you the story that she wrote about a child and how they got books.
It started in Thailand when Victoria did not have books. Then Victoria saw a elephant carrying books at the beach. She got books from the elephant library. Finally, Victoria had books to read on the beach.
And then in module 2, there's some pictures. In module 2, we're now learning about fables and how they can teach us lessons. And we're learning about informative writing. So they just did their first paragraph on writing about the lesson of the fable and used evidence to support how they knew the lesson from the story. So we just read 7 Blind Mice and finished. Bryce did this writing on the lesson.
The lesson of 7 Blind Mice is look at the whole, not the parts. Most mice looked at only one part. They did not know it was an elephant. The white mouse ran all over the something. All the parts made an elephant. You have to look at the whole thing, not just the part.
And then these are just a few pictures of the things that we've done with this program. We've had the bookmobile come to this school because that's what many of these children around the world get books from. The stories that we read were through a type of bookmobile. We have maps up in our classroom and we pinpoint all the places. And then they enjoy reading together and also acting out the stories. So we have Coco and Bo in my class acting out the characters from the story. So they do lots of really fun things to dive deep into these stories and stay engaged. Thank you.
Thank you.
I should have mentioned to all of you, I gave you a packet that's all of the parent letters for every module so that you can see what the essential questions are in the books that we're using in each module. So we get to second grade and our modules are A Season of Change, which is the one they just completed. And the students were working on change charts. So I know Mrs. Sammons is going to talk to you a little bit about change charts. Now they're in the American West. After that is the Civil Rights and Heroes unit. And then they finished with Good Eating.
Hey, hello. So we're learning. Well, we did learn. The first module was all about the season of change. So the main thing that we're noticing with wit and wisdom, and I think Mrs. Hamilton, I think you said it. Yeah, it jumps right in. It gets them right into writing. Well, you also said that. I mean, it's amazing how they start writing right away, and we're like, ooh. And that's the main thing that we notice, that they're so far ahead now of where they used to be. So I have a couple young ladies that are going to share. But Mrs. Wagner was talking about the change chart. We have so many charts up in our room. We've used so much chart paper from making charts, but we had a whole, remember, hanging on the wall, and evidence is another thing. They look for evidence. They look how things change. So our main word, I should address the vocabulary. One of the words was change. They have learned key vocabulary like change and impact, how the change impacts. So our essential question for each module, we'll have an essential question. And this one was, how does change impact people in nature? This is up the whole module. So everything that they do, hold the books up, that they picked books that they liked. Sky Tree, A Color of His Own, which you think, oh, fiction, nonfiction, but it all has to do with change and how that impacts. It's just amazing how each book ties it in. So this essential question was, how does change impact nature? During each story, these are some of the other stories. Through each story, we answer that question through smaller questions. You have like a focus question, a framing question, and then you have a craft, which is writing. And they start writing right away, and it just builds. And they learn to find evidence. The girls might talk more about this. They learn that they need a topic sentence, then evidence, which is the details to support it, and then they learn a conclusion. This is all way before they used to, previously. Then at the end of the module, so there were 4 modules. At the end of the module, you have the question again, how does change impact people and nature? Together, we did an example. We did one, how does change impact people? So we did that. The girls are going to share what they wrote about, how does change impact nature? Tegan wrote about how change impacts plants. And Charlotte, well, you share yours first, Tegan.
The change in fall weather tells plants to prepare for winter. Leaves change color because the chlorophyll is gone. Leaves stop working, they change color and fall off trees. The tree rests all through winter. The weather gets cooler in fall, so plants do things to survive.
So that word like change, they use the word change. Hold yours up again. And then also, I always post the current vocabulary that we're learning. Whoops. Okay. Right in front of them where I usually have them at the carpet. And then we put it on a wall for the whole module. It stays up the whole module. So you notice she used like chlorophyll. Yes, they're using those big words and even the key vocabulary like change, impact, and things like that in their writing. Charlotte, so she wrote about plants, Tegan did. Charlotte Keene is going to read about how it impacts animals.
The change in fall weather tells animals to prepare for winter. In fall, squirrels store nuts and acorns, and monarch butterflies and birds fly south. Snapping turtles bury themselves in the mud. The weather gets colder in fall, so animals do things to survive.
So that's the main thing that I've noticed, the vocabulary that they're using, they're tying in writing right away with this. So, thank
Excellent. Thank you very much.
And finally, we have third grade. Their units are the sea, outer space, a new home, and then artists make art. And so we have Mrs. Giles to share about third grade.
All right, so we've just finished the ocean, the sea unit, and one of the biggest things that was that really helped us was the vocabulary built in. One of the vocabulary words we learned from our very first book that we read was vast, and it actually just came back up in our lesson today in our module 2, and all the kids could remember exactly what that word meant, and we didn't have to reteach any of that vocabulary. So we have a vocabulary journal that the students use the Freyer model of synonyms and antonyms and sentences with that. And then another thing that Wit Wisdom does has built-in routines. So we have to do I notice and I wonder a lot in the stories with every new thing we do. So they have those built-in things so the students already know what to expect after they were taught those procedures. And then the very last picture is a sample of Ava's writing when we were studying Jacques Cousteau. So that was answering our essential question of how and why scientists explore the sea. And then our very last book we read was about the giant squid. And so this went into more of how scientists would explore a creature that no one's ever actually seen alive in the depths of the ocean. So she's going to share what she's learned about the giant squid.
The book had really good details about how they learned about the giant squid. One way they studied giant squids was to cut open a dead sperm whale and count how many squid beaks he ate. That helped them know that the sperm whales and giant squids live in the area and interact with each other.
Thank you.
So as you can see, we start with just a sentence or a fact, and then we build into paragraphs. And our second graders, this is just interesting because we're, preparing them for third grade and testing and so forth, but they were paragraph writing. And at the end of this current unit, I think it's a 3-paragraph essay that they'll end up writing. So it's just building on each other. And I can't thank you enough for supporting this literacy growth. It's hard work. It's hard work on our teachers. And they're doing a great job. I just commend the teachers and the students for sticking with it and really being excited and enthusiastic. So our students have a little something for you and thanking you to be part of our story. So
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, good evening. I wanted to thank you. This is, this is my first year in the district. So my previous district, we didn't actually have a science curriculum. So it was really interesting when I came here and learned that we have Amplify Science and how great it is. So thank you, first of all, for purchasing that for our students. I'm going to turn it over to one of our great science teachers. Sorry, I took her from the elementary. I know Mrs. Wagner's probably not real excited about that, but Mrs. Schaefer has been an excellent addition to our fifth grade science. She has some students. She has Jackson White and Hadley. They're going to come up, talk a little bit about some things that we're doing in fifth grade science. So Mrs. Schaefer, come on up.
Hello, I'm gonna have to move this way down. Sorry. Hi, thank you for having us today. We're very excited to talk to you about science. I was so happy to hear some of you talking about science. That's very cool. You can find science in pretty much anything, right, guys? Everything. We say that's science all the time. Well, I am very excited to talk about our new science curriculum, Amplify. Thank you so much for your purchase of Amplify. We are exploring it and learning about it every single day. And I'm not only new to fifth grade, but I'm also new to teaching science outside of kindergarten and first. So they give me grace every single day. I'm always like, this is new to me also. So thank you guys for always being understanding, but they are wonderful. So we have just explored 2 units so far. We finished our astronomy unit we started with. It's called Patterns of Earth and Sky. So much fun. I'm a big astronomy person. So we're going to talk a little bit about astronomy. And then we are currently in our ecosystems. Ecosystem restoration is the name of the unit. So each time we have 4 units for 5th grade, but we're going to throw in a 4th grade one too to hit all of those standards for the Ohio State test because they are tested on science in 5th grade. So it's a big deal. So for Patterns of Earth and Sky, every student gets a notebook. They have their student notebook that we work through the unit. And then the units also come with their own readers in 4th and 5th grade. That does change as they go to the middle school, a little bit different. But we have these reader books we use for our units. And then we're currently doing ecosystems. And same thing, they get their notebooks. And we have ecosystem books as well. So I have 3 fabulous scientists that are going to help me out today and talk a little bit about each of those units, okay? So we're going to start with Patterns of Earth and Sky, and then I'm going to have Jackson go first. Ouch. Here, I'll go for you. Thank you, Jackson. This is Jackson, and Jackson is going to talk a little bit about Patterns of Earth and Sky. It was our first astronomy unit. Do you want me to go to the artifact? I have a picture of the artifact. I just thought of that. Do you want me to show the artifact up there? I just thought about that. Will you hold that for me? Thank you. Let me switch slides real quick because I forgot. I got it ready for the simulator, which is very cool. But he is going to talk a little bit about our artifact, and then are you good to talk about Sky Night too? We have something exciting to share as well. Go on there. This is Jackson.
Hi. So in the Patterns of Earth and Sky, we had a question about an artifact, and we had to figure out what was on the missing chunk of the artifact. So we did some research about each part of the artifact to see like what season it's in and what constellation it is. And we figured out that the missing part to maybe a couple constellations.
Yeah, and they can see it up there. If you can see on the screen, this is the missing part of the artifact, and their job as astronomers was to do all of the research on constellations and seasons to figure out what that missing piece might look like, because we had to report back to help them figure out, because they want to place it in a museum. So it's very cool. Go ahead.
And also toward the end of the Patterns of Earth and Sky, we got Mrs. Schaefer put together a sky view night that we got to go in the field, and the people brought their telescopes and set them up for people to look at the stars and a couple planets. and we could even see Saturn and its rings. It was so cool.
Thank you, Jensen. Thank you so much. It was amazing. We had 2 incredible telescopes, which is going to be my next plug. I need a really good telescope because I will never go back to another one. They were amazing. And Saturn, I keep saying, like, I've seen it. I've been to planetariums. Like, I've been all over, but Saturn looked like it was just a picture, like an image or an icon, because it literally had it was beautiful. The rings around it, it was awesome. So Sky Night was just an extra thing. I went to Menu Principal and was like, can we do something fun? So we're hoping to have more. We just need some better weather. So it was really, really fun. And the kids had a good time. So we had, how many telescopes do you think we had?
We have about 10 telescopes. Along with that, I do want to thank our PTO because they did provide moon pies, Milky Way candy bars, all those things that line up with Skyline. So thank you to our PTO as well.
That's true. Yes, no, you're fine. That's true. Yeah, no, we had solar snacks.
Yes.
So it's very cool. But it was so cold by the end of the night that there were these little galaxy what are those things? Fruit roll-ups. Yeah, fruit roll-ups. And it was so cold that somebody accidentally dropped one and it shattered. It shattered because it was so cold. So I was like, science. There's more science there. It was awesome. Okay, this is Wyatt. Wyatt and I are going to go up to the screen if that's okay. Do you want me to carry a...
This movable.
Okay, I can carry that one. Okay, thank you. Okay, so Wyatt is going to help us look at, this is called the simulation. So there's a simulation in, so far, both of the units we've done. Patterns in Earth and Sky had this simulation, and now currently we have a new one in our ecosystem. And so I just wanted Wyatt to kind of show you the simulation a little bit and see what we can do with it. Anything you want to say, Wyatt?
Well, simulation is pretty cool. I like how you're able to click and view constellations, especially in the daytime. Yeah. And it is cool how you can click on each and every star and it tells you how many light years it is away. Me and my classmates found one that was like 6,000 light years away. Maybe even 8,000, I think.
Yeah, we can. That's cool.
Yeah.
And then you can search for different constellations on there as well.
Yeah.
So we studied the different seasons.
Yeah. Well, I like how it actually makes it realistic and makes it look like it's like round, like the Earth is. So I thought that was pretty cool, and me and my friends got to explore this for the very first time.
Thanks, Wyatt. Thank you. I thought it was pretty cool too. The simulation always captured their attention. They loved it every time. It was neat that we could explore and just play with it, learn different things throughout the unit, and we came back to it several times. So very, very cool. Thank you so much, Wyatt. Okay, we're gonna shift gears a little bit and get into, I'll just let it play. We're gonna get into ecosystems now. So Miss Hadley is here with 2 terrariums, and do you wanna walk up there? Do you wanna stand here to talk? Okay, we brought our terrariums, yeah. So I'm gonna let her talk, and then we will show you our terrariums. They're not in the growth stage, so just bear with us.
So lately in class, we have been learning about the ecosystems, and we have been trying to solve a problem where that people have burned down a forest, and it used to be really healthy, but now it's decaying. So we got to do this mini project. We got to plant our own terrariums using grass and alfalfa seeds, and we got to help them grow. But here's the scientific part. This was in most of the shade, and this one was in the sun. In the past few days that we started this project, this started to die very quickly. Nothing was growing. It was not growing very well. Now this one, the one that was mostly in the shade, the classroom lights, this one actually grew with a lot of grass. And this one dried up pretty quickly too. We got to measure the grass. This one had at least 13 to 20 inches of grass long, and this one only had 5 to 6 inches. So they did not grow very well in the sunlight, while that one grew very well in the shade.
which was surprising, right?
It was surprising.
It was the opposite of what we predicted. So then, as scientists, we got to see, why did that happen? Why are the ones that we thought would grow better in the sunlight not doing well? And first year, right? First year we've done this. So next year, will I be putting those on the window ledge?
No.
No. Next year we'll know. Next year we know. So they were my guinea pigs for it. But yeah, very
But
interesting.
then it won't be as scientific if you don't put them on the ledge.
Yeah, maybe we should put a couple there, huh? We'll put a
At
couple.
least a couple.
Yes. So if you would like to look at them, they're in the decaying stage, which is also science. So the ecosystem chapter is very cool. It starts with animals. We're learning about food matter, and then it goes to plants. We're in plants right now. So we're also learning chlorophyll and photosynthesis. And then next is the chapter 3, my personal favorite, the decomposers. We're going to learn about decay. Yeah, I was like, this is going to be cool. Don't worry. So we're letting these go, even though they look not very healthy. There's a reason for it. So will you walk those past them so they can take a look at the terrarium? Thank you. And while they're showing you, I just want to quickly say, Amplify is a phenomenon-based curriculum. So each unit starts with a problem, and then they become the scientists. So Patterns of Earth and Sky, they were astronomers, and they had a problem to solve. And now ecosystems, they are ecologists, and they have another problem to solve. So it's very cool, very hands-on. We're learning every day, but we're very, very happy with it. And still learning. I'm still learning as we go.
Okay, that makes sense.
Nice job. Great job. Great job. Great job.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's what I was asking. Yeah. Something to think about.
All right. Well, thank you again so much for all that you do. And obviously, you can see this is a great program for our students. They really are enjoying it. Mrs. Schaefer does a great job.
Next, we'll feature the middle school. Mr. Hancock's going to lead that section.
Hello. Thank you. On behalf of the middle school, I just want to say thank you to the board for investing in our students and staff and supporting new initiatives such as our curriculums, programs, and equipment. Our science teachers are also enjoying the Amplify curriculum very much. But today we thought we'd highlight some of our STEAM equipment. So Mr. Thompson is going to introduce some of his students and show some of the things that they have been working on with various STEAM equipment. So, Mr. Thompson.
So tonight I wanted to take just a couple minutes to kind of showcase some things we're doing in a new course we have this year, which is called STEAM Lab. So we meet in here and we use the equipment along the perimeter. Unfortunately, our vinyl printer wasn't working last semester, so students designed things, but unfortunately couldn't print some things out. So our main focus tonight is kind of going to be on 3D printing. And I brought along with me 3 students that are going to kind of share their experience, talk about the program or software that we use to create our 3D models to print out, and what sort of projects we did in class and what they considered to be their favorite project. And then also I placed off to your left some student examples that they printed off for staff members last semester. So if you'd like to take a look at some of their work. So first I'm going to invite up Aubrey, and she'll talk a little bit about the process that we go through to create our 3D models.
We use Tinkercad on our computers to make 3D models, and then we transfer to the desktops and put them on the USB to put in all the 3D pictures.
Next I'll invite up Ryan and Avea that'll talk a little bit about some of the other projects we do besides just 3D printing.
So the first project we did was the Shark Tank project, in like real life Shark Tank. We got to design our inventions and actually like show them to our class, which that was really fun to do. And then we moved on to website design. So we got to design a website using like a website creator about something we really liked, like a hobby or a sport. And then we did a personal logo, which is just like showing people about you. So it was your name, and then it had like hobbies and sports that you did. And then we had a restaurant logo, which was one of my favorite. We had like to create a menu, and then we got to design like a restaurant logo. So that was really
Some more projects that we did that was not included in the 3D printer was a movie poster. We would choose like one of our favorite movies or just a movie that we liked. We would like make it how you would see in a movie theater. You'd do like the title, something about the movie, the picture, all that. We also made a book cover where we picked like either our favorite book or one that we liked, and we like said something about the book. We like put the authors down, some images. And next, Mr. Thompson wanted a STEAM class logo for the STEAM room, so we all like made some STEAM lab logos, and Mr. Hancock and Miss Fitz will just maybe choose a few to print and put on the walls in here. And since the high school is doing a Sister Act musical this year, we made some posters and some programs that we're gonna hang up the posters at the musical time, and then we're gonna like pass out some programs for the musical this year.
That's cool.
So lastly, which Ryan kind of already hit on it, but I'll have each of them share kind of what their favorite project was. And again, we appreciate the investment in this equipment so students have this hands-on opportunity. Share what your favorite.
For me, my favorite was the personal design logos because I thought it was really fun making just like a logo for myself. I thought it was just really fun and creative.
Titles for on the 3D printer, and they chose one to use.
my favorite project was like designing keychains and stuff for like staff members because that was really cool to like personalize things for people. So I really liked that.
We appreciated the keychains as well.
Yeah, so each of you received a keychain, and tonight we have a whistle with the Johnny logo that was 3D printed for each of you as well, as a token of our appreciation for what you do. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Yeah, those are awesome.
Thank you
so much. Okay, we have to do it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We want to transition to the high school and ask Mr. Shipton to come up and do the high school presentation. And for all the naughty ones over there, stop blowing the whistle.
Save the best for last, right? I always feel so unprepared following elementary. As a former elementary administrator and teacher, I don't have any models tonight. I don't have a PowerPoint. Although remember, I did bring a robotic dog last time I was here, or a couple months ago. To that point, I do want to first thank the Board of Education. Thank you so much for your willingness to expand the programming at the high school. My first year here at the high school, and to see it firsthand with our career and technical education expansion, our two programs, our multi-skilled technicians trade, as well as our electrical trades. Under the multi-skilled, the robotics and engineering, with the different program we have going on with Mr. Howe. I wanted to give equal opportunity and have our electrical trades instructor, Mr. Jesse Mitchell, to come up here. And he brought a special guest. We have our first year electrical student, Maximus Mitchell, no relation. And Mr. Mitchell's gonna highlight his programming, and thanking you again for your innovation and forward thinking on adding this programming to the high school.
Absolutely, I'm excited to be here, and I'm thankful because I have a job. So I'm very thankful to be here because I get to do that. But for me, having the opportunity to come into Johnstown School District under the umbrella of CTech and operate's been fun for me. I'm used to the C-Tech structure of a true career tech building where multiple school districts have students in place in the lab. And there have been some challenges with having this program here, but nothing that we couldn't overcome or adapt. We do have a Northridge student and a Heights student, as well as 14 Johnstown students in the electrical training program. It's been a lot of fun so far. The fall, these students have focused mainly on residential wiring and basic construction skills. So our curriculum has been more about core safety and core construction, hand tools, power tools, communication, portability, and the labs have been focused on residential wiring. So all the students got an opportunity to do some tabletop trainers, learn the basics of what is a light switch, what's a wire nut connection, copper wiring, and got a chance to move on to learning in 4-foot by 8-foot training stations. And we went from 2D to 3D. They got to work in walls and ceilings, get it really into complex wiring, different applications, different thought processes. And that's kind of where Max, who's standing behind me, which you can come over here beside me, where Max comes into play. C-Tech is a part of Skills USA, which is a CTSO, and we have all of our instructors are members, and then all of our students have an opportunity to compete in local competitions within the school. So what happened is all 66 electrical students between the 48 over at C-Tech and the rest of the students here in Johnstown, 6 of them were selected to compete in a competition based upon the effort, the knowledge, the skill that they had shown over the first semester. So Max got the opportunity to go to C-Tech into the electrical trades lab over there and compete with 5 students from there. And Max placed second amongst all of the competitors. He was 1 point away from getting first place. During that competition, he had zero prep, zero insight to what the competition was going to be. He showed up with his tools and his wit and got an opportunity to step into a station at 8 o'clock and had to have it completely done and wired by 11. You were the last one to finish. And the reason for that is because he did a really, really good job and was very thorough. You actually got extra credit points for how clean and neat the work was. So his opportunity to step into a challenging scenario and be handed a blueprint and a bucket full of materials and a couple curveballs thrown at him, like extra materials that he didn't need to use, was able to come out in second place by 1 point. Because there are 66 students, Skills USA takes the top 2. So Max now gets to compete in the regional competition at the end of the month on January 30th against Mid-East, Eastland Career Center, Fort Hays Career Center. He gets the opportunity to compete against other career centers. If he places in the top 2 there, he gets to go to the state competition at the Convention Center in Columbus. And if he places in the state competition, he will then go to a national competition. He'll compete against the top 2 competitors in the state. So he's got a long road ahead of him if he does get an opportunity to compete in further competitions, but the next one is the end of January. Very, very similar. Max is going to step into that facility in Columbus on Goodale Avenue with his tools, and they're going to hand him, here's your project, here's your materials, here's your equipment, here's the rules. You have 3 hours. So it's from right there. He gets to digest, decide, and make those decisions. So it's a good opportunity for him to get in there and show what he knows and what he can do and show his problem-solving skills. Moving into this semester that we're in now, we're changing our focus from residential applications to commercial applications. So students are learning conduit bending and the steel tubing that you can see throughout various commercial industrial buildings, that they're learning how to do all the math and the applications and really taking that fundamental that they learned in the residential and apply it to a larger scale commercial. We've had the opportunity of 4 employers so far to come in and provide presentations for job opportunities. And with those employers, these students also get a chance to go work over this coming summer. I believe I saw in the meeting notes that there's Robertson Construction is looking at doing your addition. Almost all of the employers for electrical that are coming in and presenting, all of them do work for Robertson in some fashion. So whatever electrical contractor they decide, maybe there's an opportunity we can get a couple students to go help out with that.
Thanks. We already discussed that with them, so I appreciate that.
November board meeting.
Perfect. yeah, so there's an opportunity potentially in whatever direction that goes. But all students have the opportunity with good grades and attendance and no disciplinaries to go work over the summer, and then through their senior year they get the chance to do work-based learning opportunity as well. So looking good. We're moving strong. Students are doing really, really well. You like it? I got Elias Beck over here too. You like it? Yeah, it's a lot of fun, isn't it? So we get a chance to put tools on 3 days a week for about 2.5 hours and make the scenario like real job sites. A lot of fun. So thank you for making the decision to bring the program here. I think it's been really, really good for the students. It's been fun for me to make the transition from the adult education world to the high school world. So this is my first time in a high school. It's been interesting to adjust, but it's been really, really fun. And it's fun for me to see the growth and development of these students. So thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. Excellent.
He was very nervous about coming up here. I will point that out. So you can talk if you want.
Max, if you don't mind, I know Max well. I want to point out to other folks, though, so we only had like 3 seats available at C-Tech, and Max wouldn't have been able to go to C-Tech. So if we didn't open this here, a kid that finished second in the competition and has a lot of potential would not have been able to be in this electrical trades. He'd had to choose something else. So I think it's critical that we brought it here, and I think as much as we can expand these opportunities for the students is tremendous, because the reality is someone that's good at a trade might not have been able to get into that trade had we not done this at this location. And I understand, there's only so many seats at C-Tech available, so they're held to that standard. But with 3 seats, knowing we have 14 students, that's 11 students that would not have had the opportunity to succeed in life. So I do really credit, your teaching staff here, coming in, being willing to, C-Tech being willing to work with us, and certainly Dr. Wagner for making this happen, because it's big, and obviously the board is extremely supportive of the skilled trades. So I do thank everybody for the work on this, and it is critical. And as much as we can expand this, we would love to within the realm of what we're capable.
Develop that whole classroom, so it
Yeah.
really does look like an actual electrical trade. They have their own stalls.
Yeah, for those that haven't been here, I think.
I don't think we've had pictures of what it should finish.
Yeah, we'll get some up on that, because if you haven't been over there, I mean, C-Tech came in and really made it look like it does at their campus. So it's very nice that they've invested in our district as well. So it's been a very
The commercial panels instead of the residential, like we saw.
Right.
This is where
So what we're doing is the students are putting sheets of plywood inside of their station, and now that gives them that surface-mounted application where they can mount that steel tube. Over at C-Tech, the layout is a little bit different, where they're able to mount those sheets of plywood on the perimeter walls. First year in the space, trying to figure out how to make everything work.
Right.
Luckily, only juniors this year, so next year we'll have seniors and juniors to juggle. So the space, we hope, will look a little bit different with perimeter plywood. But for the moment, the adjustment is the students are mounting them in those 4-foot by 8-foot stations, and then are able to create that surface-mounted environment.
excellent. Thank you.
Good luck on the 30th.
good luck. We'll be cheering.
Before we finish, thanks. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Excellent. Thank you.
No, they took us a couple tries because of the leather, the suppleness of it. We had to really pull those taut across with the laser etcher machine. The precision of it is so precise. And some of that, it's not so much dust, it's more just the leather that's been heated away with that. So, but yeah, we were really happy with how they turned out with the crest and your personalized name on those. So, yes, thank you.
No, they look fantastic. Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome. We have one more. One more real quick here. Just want to thank the board again for your commitment to our Ohio Model UN students club. I know Mr. Barnhart has been the advisor for that for quite a few years. This time, unfortunately, he had a medical emergency. He's fine now. But he could not chaperone and advise our students as they went on. This was in early December, December 8th, 9th, and 10th, down to the convention center for the state competition or convention. So I got a call from Mr. Barnhart on Saturday. The competition started Sunday, and said, "Hey, I'm in the hospital. I can't make it." So we scrambled. Luckily, I made a couple phone calls, and Joel Foxell, one of our new Spanish teacher at the high school, as well as Mrs. Shannon Cox, our social worker in the district, were willing to chaperone the students and take them down to the convention center for 3 days of competition. It was we had the students represent. I'll let them get into the details of the actual competition, but they represented 3 countries and kind of that geopolitical dynamic with peers across the state. So they did a really, really good job. We have a few students here as well with Mrs. Cox and Mr. Foxell. We have our team leader, and actually received the team leadership award, is senior Miles Kuhn. We have Gracie Stoltz, Hannah Wennick, Ella Peterman, Lucia Kuhn, and Elias Beck. They want to come up here, and I'll let Miles, and if anyone else wants to say a few words, and then I'll have Mr. Foxell or Mrs. Cox close with comments for that.
Good evening. My name is Miles Kuhn, and I am a senior at Johnstown. One of the main things that I learned at Model UN was really how to work with people and kind of just freestyle on the go, as I'm doing right now, because I did not prepare to speak very well at all. But it really helped me learn how to just push through adversity and like stay focused on what we were trying to get past. We had to write resolutions, and my country was Chile, and we were tasked with trying to argue about getting it was about cocaine, but economic development and how to stop the cocaine movement through the country. And it was kind of tough because a lot of people I guess so. I mean, but it was very fun, and it also brings a lot of different people together. As I'm just a band kid, behind me is Elias, who's in electrical, Ella and my sister Lucia, who are both on the softball team, and Gracie, who's also in the band, I believe, FFA. Yeah, in FFA. So it kind of brings everybody together and teaches you how to work with like different kinds of people, because you never know who you're going to have to end up working with in real life and once you get into a job. And I really think that it's a great way for students and people just to learn how to work with each other. And with that, I would like to thank each one of you for funding this and allowing us to go on this for free, because paying for that would have been interesting. But thank you, and I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
What were the other 2 countries?
Okay, and I was from Trinidad.
Oman, the only country that starts with an O in the world. Did you know that's trivia from Jeopardy? So, the only country that starts with an O.
Oh yeah, Oman and Chile got passed. I think Oman was a unanimous pass, and then Chile, we were a little bit more argumentative, so a lot of people didn't like us as much. But we still got passed for the most. So it was a really fun experience, and I thank each one of you for allowing us to go on this.
Excellent. Appreciate the report back. I do appreciate you guys stepping up and taking them down. I know Mr. Barnhart actually really likes going to that. I mean, he joyfully tells me about this every year. So, yeah, he's fantastic. So I do really appreciate you guys stepping up.
Job. I mean, Miles is kind
Can you
of
step up to the
downplaying
mic, Shannon?
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
The kids did a wonderful job, and Miles is kind of downplaying. They really want to see a lot of healthy debate, and they go by Robert's rules. They do all the things, and so that they chose a resolution and wrote a resolution that basically promoted the healthy debate was something that's what Model UN is all about, right? It's like pick something, really dig into it. Maybe it's not popular, but argue it well, and let's see if it gets passed. And theirs did. And so all of our kids wrote really great resolutions and had super fantastic experiences showing up and working with kids from all over the state of Ohio. And really appreciate you giving them the opportunity. It was a good way. Thank you.
Do you know the countries before you get there? Do you have any idea what country you represent?
Yes,
Your homework or your research?
So a lot of schools have it as an actual class, like the kids go in class for it, and they get their resolutions like a year ahead, and they get to practice it a whole year ahead. And what's even kind of cooler with us though is that we find out what ours is like when school starts, while they're doing it the whole year prior, and then we did better than a lot of the schools that have had this for like years, like where they have a specific teacher for it, and they expect to do really good. They have arguments for every little thing that I said up there, and I was pretty surprised by it. But you really like learn a lot from just being there, and like you learn a lot about politics. You learn a lot about different aspects of countries and how different countries work, and I really think that's what we need to help kids learn more, because like that's a pretty big part in our world is government and the political aspect of each country. So thank you.
Excellent. Thanks.
Mr. Fox, anything you want to add to the group?
Hi. So like they said, I got a call the day before that we got to go. So I'm appreciative that I was able to be part of it. Thank you for thinking of me. I'll just finish off with what I thought was the most impressive part of it was not just like how well prepared they were, like they said, but also their ability to defend the resolution on the spot. Like he was hinting at, other groups got to make criticisms of their presentation and not just going off of what they know off the top of their head. They're able to defend themselves and even get their resolution passed under a lot of criticism. I remember watching yours. But you defended it really well. I was impressed.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Anyone participating next year or planning on it? Obviously, the seniors are. Okay, you plan on. That's good. It's good to see that you're wanting to go back. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Yep. Thank you.
Mr. Shipton, did we cover the high school then?
You're good.
Okay, thank you very much. So next, I have a special guest here, and I'm going to introduce Mr. Mark Bobo from the Ohio School Boards Association, who's here. Mr. Bobo, I have certificates. I know you want to hand these out. While Mr. Bobo is making his way to the front, well, I'll hand him off right quick. He'll want to talk for a few minutes about some things, but do you want me to talk about our special recognition, or do you want to?
I was going to go there myself.
Okay,
That's
you
all
go
right.
there, and I'll
All
fill in gaps. If you want to.
Good evening, everyone. Mark Bobo with the Ohio School Boards Association. Always a pleasure to be here in Johnstown-Monroe. I always will joke with Dr. Wagner. You put me after the students. That is a hard act to follow. But what I learned tonight is the investment that you all are making in your students is really making a literal difference. I hope you all took, if I can just say, took comfort and solace in hearing from those students tonight. I was thoroughly impressed, but I must admit it's a portion of that greatness is because of the work that you all are doing. And so January is School Board Appreciation Month, and tonight I'm here just to say thank you. know, the work that you do, I would say, doesn't always get all the gratitude and thanks that it deserves. But I want you to know tonight, as your state association, we appreciate everything that you're doing and making a difference for these students. Tonight was just another example of the great work that you are doing and the investment you're making within this community. We at the Ohio School Board Association are celebrating 70 years of standing up for public education here in the state of Ohio. It's because of partnerships that we have with communities and school boards like Johnstown-Monroe that allows us to keep doing that good work. So on behalf of your state association and our CEO, Dr. Catherine McFarland, thank you for your work. Dr. Widener is giving you your certificate from the association, and you'll notice on there the moniker is superheroes. We do believe that each of you serve as superheroes for your communities, making a difference. And again, thank you for all that you do. So those that are here, let's give a round of applause to our board members and their hard work. And tonight, I do want to make a special announcement. You know, it goes without saying, serving on a school board is a sacrifice and dedication. If you can do it for 1 year, you're awesome. But we have one among us that will celebrate 25 years of board service. And board member Boer, we want to thank you for your hard work and your dedication to Johnstown-Monroe. And so it's not simply going to be a thank you tonight, but what we actually will be doing is at our Capitol Conference on November the 16th, we'll have an opening session where you will be honored alongside other school board members who have served for 25 years. The way it works is you'll be on stage and we'll be able to celebrate you harmoniously for your great work. So I invite each of you to be there on November 16th for that opening session, as we'll honor board member Boer for her hard work here in Johnstown-Monroe. So let's give her a round of applause. And so again, sincerely, thank you all for what you all do, and thank you for even allowing me to be here tonight. Dr. Warner, he works with me every time I want to come out, and I really appreciate your flexibility and even allowing me to be here. My son is texting me saying I'm on the basketball court. I said I have to take care of work first, son. So, but no, thank you all for allowing me to be here tonight. And Dr. Wagner, again, appreciate your help. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Well, Mr. Bobo makes his way out. In our research, I wanted to give a little history because we thought it was interesting. So you can check our work, and Mr. Bobo has all this available. So as he said, we'll be asking all the school board members on November 16th to come to the convention center and recognize Mrs. Boer for 25 years. Actually, I believe you start your 26th year in March, if we did our math correctly. So what we found is that you were first appointed to the board in 1975. And then I figured as much, yeah. we were taking children at that point. It was okay. Yeah, very young, very youthful. And then you were appointed, but then you were elected to the board in the fall of 75, I'm sorry. And then you started actually as a school board member, as a voted member by the community in 1976. And you did that until July of 1989, and then you resigned for family because your family was growing and needed there. And then you got a call in March of 2013 to ask you to come back and run, to serve as a school board member. And then from there, you ran for re-election, and it takes us to present day. So if we did our math correctly, that's 25 years. Well, thank you, because that's when I was talking to Mr. Bobo, he's got to go again. He's really running late, but he's like, that is significant. And we talked about it last year when we recognized Mr. Swager for 10 years, but 25, you'll be up on stage and try to, well, we'll see. That's a long time, so we appreciate it. So more to come in November.
Congratulations.
One more thing, I want to read something, and then we have a video that we're going to be able to show. More formally here, the video is going to be just a year in review of 2024 because there's a lot to celebrate. But I want to tell the board formally, all of us want to express our deep appreciation to each and every one of you. Your dedication and commitment to the educational excellence greatly benefits our school district. You see electrical trades. We come to you with an idea, and we said, look, at some of our students can be turned away. We went to CTEC. We have an idea. Thank you, Mr. Pope. We have an idea, and you approved it. I mean, it took a lot of work. And then, what we didn't talk about, we should recognize, is the room wasn't wasn't the proper size, and we got the architectural plans, and there was a lot of foresight when that building was built. We could remove, there was a non-load bearing wall, and that's what made it work. We took the wall out, and then we have that double classroom. So you often have to balance your work, family, and life commitments while devoting countless hours to ensure that every student receives the highest quality education. The year 2024 celebrations, again, we'll show the video here next, and it brought us numerous challenging decisions and complex issues, and that all required careful consideration. These include budget oversight, strategic planning, facility and building projects, all while prioritizing student achievement and well-being. Your contributions extend beyond official duties, and you serve as crucial links between our schools and the community. I want to thank Mr. Swager, Mrs. Davis, Mrs. Boer, Mr. Benton, and Mrs. Thomas for their unwavering support and leadership of the Johnstown-Monroe School Board. And your efforts create an environment in which students can thrive, and their commitment fosters the success of our schools. So thank you very much. And then we're going to show a video of your review, because it's good to see all the things we've done, and I think sometimes we forget it if we don't go back and look at all this, and we're looking at even a better 25. So go ahead, Mr. Busenberg. our video, and then that's all available on the website, social media platforms, I should say, as well too. So thank you again for everything you've done, and this is just a small token here, and we certainly look forward to 2025 because even more to come.
Excellent. Thank you. Now on to business.
On to business. Oh, there. Good. You guys walked out in the hall. You scared me a little bit before I got. Did you leave? Next, we want to transition to Next, we'll transition to our presentation that we walked in, and that is building projects. And as I said earlier, we approved GMP, Guaranteed Maximum Price 1, and then now we have Guaranteed Maximum Price 2. This timeliness, I know some of this information is coming together quickly, but the timeliness of this is important because if the board approves a resolution later tonight, it gives us the ability to go out and bid for the second package. We have Mr. Jeremy Johnson here from Robertson Construction. He'll lead most of the presentation. And Mr. Mike Vala from BSHM Architects is also here. And then you have a paper copy of this presentation in front of you too, if you want to from that. Sometimes that's easier, especially when the print's small. You ready?
He brought a flash drive with a slightly updated.
Oh,
Just a pretty
okay.
picture. There's no new content. Just a pretty
Okay.
picture. Might need a rendering.
Okay. Very good. And so, Mr. Johnson, are you going to run through the PowerPoint then? Okay.
Yeah, and we got.
Can you pull the mic in a little closer to you,
sure.
just so
There's
because
well,
we're
first
recording.
of all, thank you for having us tonight. Does that work?
A little bit closer if you don't
A little
mind.
closer.
Yeah.
It's for the at-home audience.
Okay.
Yeah, so they can hear.
All right. Well, thank you for having us tonight. We're here again to talk about the second guaranteed maximum price. If you recall, we were here a couple of months ago, maybe just last month, and spoke about the first guaranteed maximum price. And so when we do this, what we did two GMPs in order to get things started, to get things ordered. So the first GMP involved 6 packages: site work, concrete, steel, roofing, or I'm sorry, not roofing, but asphalt and CERP. We're here to talk about another group of packages, which I'll go through. And then certainly there's a lot of information here. Please stop me if you have questions. Mike's here to answer questions about the design, and we'll just kind of walk through it if that's okay. So I wanted to just start with some kind of pictures, know what it's going to look like. This is your existing building here now, obviously the end of the building. And then kind of the 2D look on the right-hand side is what it'll look like when we're done. And we do have a rendering that Mike provided that is what got updated. So I'll show that to you here in a minute. But you can see where you kind of have a flat end of a hip roof and this really small gable stair tower. It's going to be a full gable end when we're completed. And there's some room for signage, the logoing in that gable end. That's going to go through some further design and approval, but and then really just mimicking some of the same design elements that you have on the rest of the building. This is the additional graphic here. So this is what it looks like now from kind of an angle, and then this is what Mike and his team put together to show you what it'll look like when we're done. So it hopefully gives you a little bit more visual understanding of what it's going to look like. And they were very intentional, and I certainly don't need to speak for Mike, but they're very intentional about kind of creating a natural transition there with some coloring and some indenting. But I think it's going to look really nice to try to complement what's there, so it looks like it wasn't an addition as much as possible. Obviously, we're going to be limited with what the sun does to colors and things like that, so we'll be purchasing the same brick materials, the same window materials, the same roof materials. There could be some very slight color variations just due to weathering and things like that, but we're going to do our best to make it look like it was always there. So again, just to pick some pictures. The backside didn't have a great shot of the backside, but it's going to be a little less architecturally significant since it's in the back. But you can see there kind of on the right, there's a little cutout. That's where the HVAC unit will sit. So you can just kind of see, we talked more about the HVAC unit. But in the full render, so you kind of see the parking lots and everything that Mike put together, get a sense of what it'll look like on a little greater scale. So Any questions on the look or design? So moving into the details of what we're asking for approval tonight, scope. So what are we asking you to approve tonight that we haven't already purchased? There's about a little 10 or so packages here, basically everything else that we need to build the building. So we had a group of 6 packages initially. Now we're looking for things like masonry, roofing, HVAC, electrical, technology, those type of things, casework, and so on and so forth. So this is what we're asking macroscopically for your approval to move forward with tonight. And we've actually went out and received bids on these packages, and the numbers we're presenting is a culmination of those bids and some recommendations that we're making to you. So, schedule, no change really in the schedule, other just updating. Hopefully we secure approval tonight. That would mean we intend to have all the contracts issued by next Monday, kind of clean up everything, get all our subcontracts issued, and then our substantial completion date is August 15th. We'll probably have some punch list items we should be able to occupy by that point, hold your classes. We'll certainly work out with administration and staff, anything that's got to be buttoned up, kind of after the kids come back. So, any questions on the scope or the schedule? One element I wanted to call your attention to relative to the schedule. On the ground floor, we're going to have a covered walkway out of the ground floor, and that's required due to code distances. So this will be an emergency exit only, but during construction, through that existing stairwell, out through the construction to the, I guess you would call it the west, for lack of a better term. If there was an emergency during construction, there'll be a covered tunnel to get out of there. And the other element I wanted to point out is something we'll talk a little bit more about in a minute, but there's this area here in blue. I didn't realize it was a touchscreen. Sorry about that. But that's the area that we're going to be talking about, whether we put the opening in the wall. And so we'll talk a little bit about that in a moment, but I wanted to highlight where that's going. And that happens right now on all 3 floors on the south, if that's what you want to do. I'll talk about that all. The other thing I wanted to point out just real quickly, again, this does impact the schedule and just kind of how we're going to work in your building when we're there. On the main floor and on the upper floor, we will also be preserving the stairwells until the summer, roughly around the last couple weeks of May, when you all are out. We will then go in there because there's quite a bit of work in that stairwell that we have to do, which I'll show you a graphic. It's a little easier to understand, but basically we're going to be reconfiguring that stairwell so you can have a clear access up into the new space, where right now it's a switchback stairwell. But we can't do that while kids are in school and keep a safe egress, because they've got to be able to get from the top floor or the main floor down to the ground floor and all the way out in the event of emergency. So just a little bit of information. And then you can see this is the main floor and upper floor. We have that same graphic for the potential opening. So that's where those would happen. This is just to give you an example. The area in red, that's your existing stairwell. So you come up a set of stairs, you turn, and you go down or up or down into the switchback. Eventually, instead of having the switchback, it'll just be a straight shot up with a little bit of landing. So that's the difference. And where that red line is, that's where the exterior wall is now. So reconfiguring all that, there's quite a bit of work in there that has to happen. So we're going to be real close to what you're doing. We're going to try to be sensitive as we can to the educational process, but we've got a very short window, so we'll work collectively, but it's going to be very, very busy on that end of the building. This quick graphic to show you looking a slice through the end of the building of where those, if you approve the alternate, where those openings will be for the expanded classrooms on it. So, any questions about any of that, where they'll be? Okay, so the numbers macroscopically through the 17 packages, that includes what we did the last time. We received 60 bids. The average bid was about 3.9, high just about 4.7. The original apparent lows in 3.3 range, and we're recommending in the neighborhood of 3.7 for total. That includes the first wave of what you already approved, which was right around $1 million. So tonight it's roughly 2.7 that we're looking to approve tonight. So probably have a sheet with all the bids on it. I won't spend a whole lot of time on here, but largely there's 3 to 5 that we're recommending not going with the apparent low bid. Most of those situations are because they didn't have a complete scope. There are a handful of situations that we're still evaluating that'll be cleaned up this week, and some of that reasoning is we typically start with the first couple of bidders that are the most competitive. We interview them, they do their homework, they come back, and then sometimes one of those first 2 or both of them are no longer the low bidder. So it's a very iterative process. So we're still cleaning up some of those iterations, and there could be some additional savings in there, which is great about this process. It's an open book process, and any savings come back to you. So if there's any specific questions, I can spend more time on individual packages, but I tried to provide some notes as to kind of what was going on with each of those packages and kind of why we were recommending what we're recommending.
For the openings between the classrooms, you're saying we left that open. In previous discussions, we talked about how we would close that. So do you want to address that?
Yes, definitely. Let me go to that slide, and then I'll come back. So
there's a slide that addresses that.
Okay.
Oh,
Yeah. Why don't you stick with where you are, and then we'll get that one in a couple of slides later.
Before we move on to, are there any questions? There's a lot of notes on here. I know you've already had a long meeting so far. So are there any specific questions on any of the recommendations we're making, or kind of what we're doing there?
One of the things why the board isn't talking a lot is because they've been actively involved, whether that's been throughout this process, subcommittees, and we regularly been keeping the board in information. So this is all, you're seeing this for the 3rd, 4th, 5th time. Some of this bidding information is coming together, and we'll talk a little bit later about budget and how things are trending.
Absolutely. Just wanted to be prepared to answer any questions you might have.
Which way did we go on the conventionally framed on site or pre-manufactured walls offset?
We haven't made a selection yet because we can't do that officially until we get your approval, but we're really leaning towards that pre-manufactured just because of the schedule. We don't want to leave anything to chance when it comes, when those walls are ready to go up. Who knows what could be going on, right? And so we're kind of leaning that way, but we also, on that bid line, we've asked the other bidder for that same, what would it cost to do pre-manufactured? So it could still be that other bidder. We're working that out this week. I know a couple of my colleagues in the office spent a lot of the day going through some of that with the other bidders. So, but our goal is to get the most economic price, but also achieve the quality and the schedule that you guys desire. So that's where we are with that. Any other questions on the bidding? We have in the GMP a number of allowances. This is just line items that we are carrying to cover work that isn't necessarily specific, but we believe the budgets are adequate to do so. But it's just important that those are part of the GMP. And then certainly last but not least, we have 4 alternates for your consideration. And so the first 2, A and B, deal with parking lots. Those are important, but those aren't mission critical to be selected today, for example. If you guys have a little bit of time to deliberate on those, probably I would suggest maybe February or March we make a decision. You kind of have in mind what you'd like to do. These are the smaller lots, one by the baseball field, one behind on the backside. The other 2 are more integral to the project. So, for example, the openings. This price right here is just for the openings. So if you want to do the openings, we need that authorization to do that, in addition to the monies that are already allocated, or what we're proposing. And alternate 2 is a difference in the doors to the classrooms. So the classrooms now have a single slab door. So just like you would have coming into this room or on the bathroom there, and there's a very narrow light. And it's a little bit of a challenge because all those doors open into the stairwell, and the stairwell is a 2-hour rated opening. And so the rest of the building has a solid door with side light, a glass side light. So if you wanted to do that, we would then be migrating to and using this alternate 2. And the reason that's a little bit more expensive for half a dozen doors is because of the rating. the other entry points throughout the building are not necessarily 2-hour rated. So they don't have to have the really expensive glass and the fire rating on the doors. So it's really just a decision that the preference, and the primary reason we needed the decision sooner than later on that is because of the lead time. So it takes quite a bit of time to get those frames and glass and doors for the August completion. So those two really need some direction on. The other two, you have plenty of time.
So if we could talk, could we spend a couple minutes talking about this? Because later tonight you'll have a resolution. On the expanded classroom, or size of the classrooms, I believe the board was in favor of that. Please speak up now. You have a different direction. But where we don't have price services board, which we have to do this versus then what do we do with those walls, close them, and the partitions? So if the board approves this, then we'll come back at some point and then talk about partition options.
This
That's
is just
okay
the
with board.
opening,
Right? I understand.
And prepping
Yeah.
it for whatever you choose to put in there. And you maybe want to, if you want to do that, then Mike can walk through with you your different styles of openings, finishes, so on and so forth.
So we'll have the partitions discussion in the future if that's okay with the board. Maybe it's the construction aspect right now. The other, Mr. Johnson, is that the door, like that door at the end of this room, is that the type of door you're talking about that we would put in the facility if?
Yeah, similar size.
Yes. Okay. Or Mr. Valley should ask that. So one of the things we've talked about is trying to make sure that high school looks exactly the same. You can't tell there's an addition. And for most aspects of it, you won't see the difference. Everything will be blended in. But the door is the issue, because right now, as he said, currently in the high school we have solid doors with a side window. The cost will be greater if we do that, and lead time, I think, too, because of the rated glass. Basically, that door is the option, but the doors will look different. So I wanted some feedback from the board on that. Which way we want to
You
go.
want to point out that you won't have the wire glass in those
Right.
new doors, just to be clear.
Yeah.
This has wire glass. We don't specify
When you said to be clear, is that a pun?
It was.
Because I caught it if it were. I caught
So
it.
it'll be clear. We won't see the wire.
Correct.
To be clear.
To be clear, it will be
Not-
clear.
To be clear, it'll
Not to expand on the pun, but just so we are 100% on the same page, we use a little bit different language. The base contract that we're proposing tonight is that size of a door with a very narrow glass. So that's included in the base bid, base GMP. In order to take this, when you take this alternate, you get the solid door with the side light glass. So that's the alternate. So you would have a solid door, but it would have, what is it, 18 inches or so?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a fire rating on the glass now, is what it is. Yeah. Yeah.
I just want to be clear. I apologize.
No, that's why I wanted to pause for a moment, because it can be,
Yeah.
what's in the base and what's the ad, and I just want to make sure we're very much on.
Some of this is coming together kind of fast because we just met Friday, I think it was, went through this and this through the bidding process just came through.
The store would be on all 3 floors or just
Yeah, that's a good question. Jeremy and Mike, what's that?
She was asking if it would be on all 3 floors.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. We were asking about safety, school safety. Any concerns there with the window versus a solid door with a smaller, like a side window versus?
I mean, I'm certainly not an expert on.
Yeah, I know,
latest
just from
safety
the design standards, I didn't know if there was a recommendation one way or the other about
latest and greatest?
school safety. We have good lockdown procedures and all too, and
It will be, either way, it'll be safe. It'll be the same safety level that your classrooms are in the rest of the building if you take this alternate.
okay. So it really becomes more of an aesthetics issue.
I don't have, I'm fine with base package personally, but also, I'm also not an interior designer.
Well, if you do the side panel, we worked on this a little bit on Friday. If you do the side panels, it's going to be about as safe. It's just that the glass is heavier, so that's why you see it up right. Oh, just over $36,000 because the configuration of each door is going to be different. But from a safety standpoint, I think that the compensation of having fire-rated glass will extend your 2-hour plus time limit. I'm assuming, like, correct?
The glass itself is rated for 90 minutes at that point, so
Yeah.
it's usually a thicker pane of glass.
Okay.
So those actually probably will be a little safer than the other glasses. Glass is so much thicker.
I mean, like I said, I wanted everything to look exactly the same, but I don't think anybody's going to really notice that. And if the doors, I mean, it's the way things are moving forward. Right?
Discussion about the side lights, here the doors and curtains.
Yeah. 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 Well, that is an issue when you do a lockdown. When we do a lockdown, we have those privacy screens right now that cover, so we'd have to do that for the side windows too.
If you do the side light, like we were just discussing, then we did positioning, because if I were to do, I could do every way. That's so
Yeah.
that's my base bit.
That's some of the stuff we do there.
So if I'm hearing that, we'll go with base bid if something happens that, you want to talk. I mean, this doesn't need to be tonight, but we just wanted to get some direction. Again, it's all kind of unfold on Friday.
I think,
I think we can.
Okay. Well, I'm saying, okay. You don't
We want the expansion, and we don't want we want the base package.
Yep. So just to be clear, then we'll take both of those alternates. Or no, I mean, we'll take the one alternate, but not the other. So we'll take the alternate of larger classrooms, which is alternate 1, but we will not take the alternate 2 then. Okay.
we will take the our larger open, though, did you say that?
Yeah.
We will discuss the
Yeah.
closure later.
Yeah. Well, and we'll have board members. We'll have committees come in because we'll start looking at our partition options, because there's a lot. That's a much bigger project than you may think about. Writables, writing on them, not writing on them, how they collapse. That's,
So, I just wanted to be able to change.
yeah, that's
Not to block.
That's one of the things we talked about, and I was reflecting before on the electrical room. One of the things we talked about is we could put a partition in there that could be removed as an option too, so you wouldn't have to have any partitions. We haven't priced any of that out, but we lightly touched on that Friday.
It's a test of time. It
Yeah.
doesn't sag over time. You can't get it over.
Yeah. So if you're okay, then we'll work as a we'll get a couple board members and we'll have work sessions and more to come, and then we could decide if we want to do I'll call it like a remove partition that's not masonry, or if we have movable doors, and we'll look at that. One of the things we're working on right now is what would the building look like with these 6 additional classrooms and another 150 students. So we're trying to plan now for 700 students in that building so that we don't have to make changes along the way. So we're looking at a reconfiguration. So all these discussions are relevant because we can say, here's where science lab is right now. Don't hang on, just throw this as an option. Because there's nothing hidden in this. We might say, let's move all the science right now so we're centrally located, or it could be a career tech room or something. Okay, you have your direction then on that?
Yes.
Okay, and then we'll look at the parking lots through subcommittees too. As you said, they're thinking that
There's no need to
mission critical right now.
Yeah, I would say if we do something in the March timeframe, that would be really helpful because that's when we'll probably really get, when the weather breaks is when we'll be looking to do that work.
I have one question on the picture that you gave to us of what it would potentially look like. And it has a curve in the parking lot. It showed it.
No, you're fine.
There, yeah.
Do you think that I have to put some kind of protective barrier, something right there to, because we have the parking, it's on the other side. I know we kind of brought that up. But it was going to be really close. We all decided we wanted to be that close because we wanted to expand the building. And now looking at it,
Or because that's going to be like parking lot right there. They're going around. Anybody can go around there. But we know what happens today. So. I don't know what it's very long.
It's very close to that door.
And if they open the door, somebody could just be coming around one opposite end. I don't know. Am I making too much of it?
Is that something you can look at for us and give us options? Like I'm thinking all the way from bollards to some other options, right?
Yeah,
You know, that we want to look at.
do a study of
Yeah.
putting a couple of bollards out there to protect that opening.
Or other options
Or,
too, if the board wants to look
some
at.
speed bumps
Yeah.
or something, just to
Yeah.
slow people down.
Something like that. I knew it was going to be close.
So it's so close.
Well, when we increase the size of the classrooms too, that moves it out.
Yeah. And then we have student drivers. Right? So
Well, I mean, anybody coming along that blind side, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we
They
do
can
see
come
them
right-
come down that
yeah.
way. When you have all the kids here from camp, it's not that it's their fault. Like, deliveries in the back. They come
Yeah.
down the back.
Well, yeah, once, I mean, if it's 2 steps out and you're on the parking lot, you just gotta make sure everyone's careful.
So you can look at some options for us? Okay.
I'd like to discuss the parking.
Sure.
As a board, I guess on the parking, are we all in agreement to add that parking on the back side? I thought we discussed this.
I thought we wanted.
Not that, I know you
Yeah,
didn't
that was a
need
no.
that answer tonight, Jeremy, but I don't see us needing to get together again to discuss this when we've already. The stuff at the baseball field, we have to wait until we see what happens on the baseball field. I'm not comfortable committing to that until we see the other project on the baseball field. But the part, the spaces on the southeast of the school. Yeah. Yeah. I think we were all in agreement. That's a yes. Just to let you know now. But the B, alternate B has to, TB. Until we see the baseball stuff, I'm not comfortable.
Yeah, do we need to wait for the baseball? Because there could be some changes potentially.
So, just to move along on that.
So we're talking about both parking options and we look
Alternate
at
A is a go.
Yeah.
B, we have to wait until they show us
Right.
how the baseball is going to lay out.
Right.
If
Yep.
we do it or not.
Yeah.
Potential is there that we want to do something.
Because the new concession stand
Yeah.
room up there for the baseball/football/softball open, how that lays out would potentially affect the expansion of that park.
And we've been looking at that. Continue to look at getting something that will be
All right, thank you.
And then, Mr. Robertson, one of the things I want to highlight as well too, and I'm going to ask you a question. I know the answer, but I want to make sure that it coincides with your saying, your perspective. So later on, Resolution 14 will be a resolution asking the board to review all this, and it's going to be asking the board to approve $2,700,031 dollars there. And the idea is that that's a guaranteed maximum price. One of the things that I'll say, and tell me if this is wrong, because it's more fun than you, but that number is obviously going to be your guaranteed. It's probably a little inflated as well too. Within our budget, we're not sure how the egress is going to be handled. That we've had, when the building's under construction, we've had two different perspectives. One was to close the end of the building, and we could close, the staircase, and it would need to be functional. Now we have a latest one that says we may need to have an alternate staircase. So we've talked about everything from like an external, almost like a fire stairway in the back or off the back of the building or side of the building. But there's another, I'm just telling you, there's $50,000 built into this to compensate for that. And then there's some bidding that we would expect to come out a little lower as well. Two of them can't guarantee all that. So is that correct that 2.7 and change is expected to be less?
That's our goal, is to drive it lower. Yes, that's the short version, but yes.
We want the board to know that.
Yep.
Because technically we're slightly over our budget from what we initially, this is Jeremy and I were working on this, from what we originally budgeted on this. And that's only for two reasons. One is that we're expanding the classrooms, but more importantly, the HVAC, because as we all know, but I'll just level set here, is that the standards have changed. So even though the building was built for the addition, we have to have a separate heating plant right now, or HVAC plants. But other than that, we're trending within the budget. And then the other thing, and Mrs. Drummond and I were talking about it, is we still have a $12.5 million total budget for all four aspects, and we haven't done anything with the board office, as you know. So there, we can move some monies around if we need.
Two other quick elements just to add on to that. None of what we've presented to you includes any loose furnishings in the addition. So that'll be something that'll work out. Mike and his team will work with you all to figure out and finalize. So that could be an element that is a comeback item to talk about. And then the second piece is the number that you have in your resolution tonight does not include these alternates.
Right.
So if you want.
So what you're telling us, you got to come up with $55,000 in savings for us, that they're included, and enough for the loose furnishings. I was just following along.
We'll work on that. We'll work on that. But my point is, again, having as many answers as we can is great. But at minimum tonight, it would be really wonderful if you could add the 68.5 to your resolution so that we can get that.
Are you also asking for the 19,973?
Only if that's what you want to do. We weren't anticipating that tonight.
I mean, if we're going to add them, add both of them in. Do a modification.
When we get to that resolution, we'll take care of it.
That's
so
88,427.
Anything else that?
No, sir.
Yeah. Board members, anything more? This is still the presentation section.
Thank you
for
having us.
Yeah, thank you both. Yes, thank you. And your whole team, actually. Okay, Mr. Schwager, that ends the presentation.
Work on the job
Yes.
site.
Yeah, that'd be great. We'd love to have them.
Yeah.
Alrighty. You want to go on to board committees?
Yeah, the only board committee that met was insurance on January 9th. Is there anything that you want to do a little summary on our insurance meeting? Or?
We just chatted about that. Maybe not tonight, this week.
Okay. Yeah, and honestly, there wasn't that many outcomes from the meeting. It was more just a study and analysis. Some more to come on that. Public committee, we don't have any report because the next meeting will not be until January 21st. Under consent agenda, I'm sorry, everyone good with committees? Okay, good. Under consent agenda, I'll read the resolution and then we'll get a first and second if we can. So resolution 24-12-009 is approval of the consent agenda. Get a motion.
I'll make the motion. Oh, I'll second.
So Mr. Benton and Mrs. Thomas? Okay. And then I'll just run through these real quick, and please let me know if you have any questions. I know you've seen some of these, but unpaid days, we don't talk about why those are there, but they're for a reason when someone's run out of sick leave. So we have those, or I should say leave in general. We have those two people there. We have a substitute for the cafeteria to hire. We also have many volunteers there. You can see all their names and their responsibilities and their dates. We have board meeting minutes. All we have is one segment of board meeting minutes, and that's from December the 16th. And then we have the monthly finance report, and that concludes the consent agenda.
Any questions?
We did it without.
Yep.
We did. The motion and a second.
Mr. Benton was first, and Mrs. Thomas, well, he told me he was going to.
Show
We can punch them with that.
There you go.
We don't wait on the
Yeah,
agenda.
appreciate that.
Call the roll?
Mr. Benton?
Yes.
Mrs. Thomas?
Yes.
Mr. Swager?
Yes.
Mrs. Boer?
Yes.
Mrs. Davis?
Yes.
You, Felicia.
On the treasurer's recommendations, we have several motions this evening. The first one is to approve donations. We received a donation from Tech Rubber for $50,000.
Wow.
I can get a motion
I'll motion.
and a second.
Second.
Comments? This is their continued support of the original commitment for the football stadium rebuild. We appreciate Tech Rubber's continued support of the school district. And I don't know, was this like the 8th installment of somewhere around there? Isn't it? 7th installment. So we do appreciate their continued support and commitment to the school district. I know a lot of people, when that project got built, you hear about it, but this is really this and the other donation from Dave Denman. Those are two ongoing continued commitments that are critical to the school district. So I do appreciate Tech Rubber for this as well.
And we send written response.
We do. Yeah. Signed, I believe the donation letter signed by.
Yes. Yep. I haven't gotten it. We haven't voted on it. I'll give it to you. All right. Any questions, comments on that? Call the roll, please.
Mrs. Thomas?
Yes.
Mrs. Boer?
Yes.
Mr. Benton?
Yes.
Mrs. Davis?
Yes.
Mr. Swager?
Yes.
The next item on the agenda is Resolution 2501-11 to approve new funds for accountability and tracking of funds by each intended purpose.
If I can get a motion.
Second.
Any discussion? I think we know what we're doing here. Call the roll, please.
Mr. Benton?
Yes.
Mrs. Thomas?
Yes.
Mr. Swager?
Yes.
Mrs. Boer?
Yes.
Mrs. Davis?
Yes.
Resolution 2501-12 would be to approve transfer of funds as noted on the agenda.
Can I get a motion?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Discussion? I think we know through the committee reports on these. Call the roll, please.
Mr. Benton?
Yes.
Mrs. Davis?
Yes.
Mrs. Boer?
Yes.
Mr. Swager?
Yes.
Mrs. Thomas?
Yes.
And the final resolution under Treasurer's Recommendations, number 2501-13, to authorize the Treasurer to request advances of any real estate tax, property taxes collected by the County Auditor and available for distribution before the Spring 25 settlement.
Can I get a motion?
Motion.
Second.
And second, any questions? This is the routine one we do yearly. Call the roll, please.
We actually have to do it twice a year now,
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
to
It's a
accommodate the
lot.
county.
Oh.
Yes. Yep. Mrs. Boer?
Yes.
Oh, excuse me, who? I think I have something.
Alan was
Just
second.
second. Yes. Slip of the mouse. Mr. Benton?
Yes.
Mrs. Thomas?
Yes.
Mr. Swager?
Yes.
Mrs. Davis?
Yes.
I'm going to add two resolutions. So before we get to resolution 14, so the first resolution will be 25-01-013A, and that recommended action there is to modify the board agenda, and specifically resolution 05-01-014, and that'll be the total amount of the guaranteed maximum price. So I'm just requesting permission first and second, and then a vote for the board to agree to modify the agenda.
If I can get a motion on 25010138 to modify the agenda.
I'll second.
And when you catch up, you can call the roll.
Mrs. Thomas?
I was second.
Mrs. Davis?
Yes.
Mrs. Thomas?
Yes.
Mrs. Boer?
Yes.
Mr. Benton?
Yes.
Mr. Swager?
Yes.
Resolution 20, I'm adding this one to 25-01-013B, and that is a resolution recommended action. There is to change resolution 05-01-014 and the guaranteed maximum price amount from $2,700,031. Number is $2,007,000. The number is there.
You were way too fast for me.
Okay. Sorry.
How about, if you tell me that number, I'll give you a total.
Sure. It's 2,700,031. And we want to add.
Yeah, I got the other one.
You got
So 2766531.
I'll read that back to you. 2766531.
Is that the right number?
Is that the new number?
Parking it too.
Yeah.
You had 19.
So just be 68.5 and 19,973 added into.
Okay, let's do it one more time.
Yep.
19. Do you have the totals? Well, just start. from scratch.
19,973.
973 and
68,500.
And then the 2 million.
2700031.
$2,788,504.
I'll read that number back. 2,788,504.
504.
Correct.
504.
Got it? Okay. So resolution 25-01-0, I'm sorry, 013B is proposed. It's to modify resolution 25-01-014, guaranteed maximum price. The new cost of resolution 14 would be 2,788,504.
Correct.
Yes.
If I can get a motion,
I'll motion.
and if I can get a second.
Second.
When you catch up, you can call the roll.
Lots of typing.
Mrs. Thomas,
Yes.
Mrs. Boer,
Yes.
Mr. Swager,
Yes.
Mrs. Davis.
Yes.
Mr. Benton.
Yes.
Resolution 25-01-014 is guaranteed maximum price number 2.
If I can get a motion,
I'll motion.
and can I get a second?
Second.
I'm going to just read this resolution, or part of this resolution, because there's some background that's given to you there, but the actual resolution we'll read is this, or the action item. The Johnstown-Monroe School Board of Education resolves the following: 1, GMP amendment number 2 to the agreement with Robertson for the project approved in an amount not to exceed $2,788,504. The board hereby authorizes the superintendent treasurer, working in conjunction with other administrators and legal counsel, to negotiate the terms of GMP amendment number 2 and execute GMP amendment number 2 and any related documents at the satisfactory conclusion of negotiations on behalf of the Board of Education. For the board.
Any questions, comments? Call the roll.
Mrs. Thomas.
Yes.
Mrs. Davis.
Yes.
Mr. Swager,
Yes.
Mrs. Boer,
Yes.
Mr. Benton.
Yes.
Resolution 25-01-015 is the Power School contract.
If I can get a motion,
I'll make the motion.
and can I get a second?
You wait down
You gonna second
I'm
that?
not using curriculum.
Well,
I'll second it.
I'll second it, but I got questions.
Technology. Well,
It's a mixture.
Okay.
All right.
I'll second it.
Just as a
I thought it was
reminder,
technology.
Just as a reminder, we're preparing for a transition from LACA to Meta Solutions. I had hoped, we potentially hope to bring a contract this evening on Meta Solutions, but we're still working that through legal counsel with, there, nothing too serious, but there's some issues like indemnification clauses that, we get those all the time, and we cannot extend our indemnification to another organization, public or private. So there's little things like that, nothing that should be insurmountable. And I'll bring that contract to the board at the next meeting when it's available. But this is the interim step, just helping us get ready, because we'll still maintain Power School.
So,
Yeah.
Is Power School related to LACA or UNA services? Is it separate on its own?
It's on its own.
It's on its own.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it's its own service, but then they contract either. So when we get done, and you'll see this, Meta Solutions will manage our school contract as opposed to LACA, which it is right now. What this allows us to do is to start to make the transition for Meta Solutions for a separate contract.
So will Meta if Meta's taking over Power School, is that what I'm understanding? They would
they with managing it, are we
Yes.
still going to be maintaining this contract that we're negotiating with them?
Yes.
We still would do
Yes.
that? So I saw in there they gave a 60-day termination notification. That's what I was trying to say.
Yeah, it's a good question, because part of the intricacies of this is the way the contract cycles expire, and I'm trying to remember, I think it's February 7th. So
It's February
we're
7th, 26th.
Yeah, we're kind of in an odd situation, because normally LACA would just renew that contract if we were staying with them, but we wanted to be fair to LACA, and I want to credit Mrs. Seibel because she's been running point on this. But we went to LACA. It's been a little uncomfortable sometimes, but LACA and Meta Solutions, working with them both, and we didn't want LACA to have to pay annual for us when we're terminating our contract in the summer. So what we did is we worked with both agencies. In fact, we're on the call today and having them. It's a little awkward, but like I said, we're going to renew the contract now. We'll own it, and then Meta Solutions will pick it up once we make the transition.
And I noticed it broke down by 1,700. So is that staff and students, or is that just like?
I couldn't do that off the top of my head. I'd have to go back and look at the.
Well, it said 1,700. So
Yeah, no, it is. I don't remember how.
that we could go up to that many students, or is that staff?
Oh,
and
yeah,
students?
yeah. I'm sorry. I thought you meant the cost breakdown.
I've got the cost breakdown.
Yeah. Yeah, we
So
could be up to
it's
17.
1151 per student.
Yes.
And then when it referenced that there were unused credits in the language, did we have any unused credits on Power School that we had to use, or is that just a general statement?
My understanding
I
is
didn't
it's
see
a
any
general
unused
statement in
credits.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't see anything that would offset it. And then have they talked about any type of reimbursement or credit based on this data breach that they had?
No, we still don't know where every aspect of that. So well, I can answer it this way. And I don't think I'm disclosing anything that I shouldn't. There's a potential, depending on their investigation, and as a board, you should be aware too that we've lost our Meta and LACA. They may be providing credit protection services, but that's not our responsibility. That's theirs. But we're still working through that. One of the things we want to do, in fact, I had it in my comments, which I can skip at the end here, is we have made a request to see the extent of the data, because they're called tables in the process. So a student table, a staff table, in different. Overall, also, it doesn't look like any of the data has been released. From my understanding, I don't have an official statement, but I can tell you from what, as we're working through this, is that there's a ransomware aspect of this, and there may be an option to compensate thieves in this case. Again, this is not our district, our money. This is the third-party vendor. And then I guess that there's some process, and I'm not familiar with it, but they would, if they work out a negotiation, then they would destroy all the data away. There wouldn't be anything released for students or staff. Some of that's conjecture. Some I don't have official. What we are doing is conducting our own audit, like I said, so we can see what our tables look like, the extent of what, if anything, has been released, and then once we know more about action planning from Power School, then we'll let the board know.
I guess I was kind of surprised at what their quote was, and I don't really have anything to base it on, but I just thought that almost $20,000 to maintain records annually. But is that typical? I mean, I guess I looked at it here. Is that typical?
The thing I would say to you, and this is one segment of it because we're taking a package. When it's all done, we can do an analysis right now, and I'm kind of reticent saying this because it doesn't always hold true exactly, but we may actually save a little bit of money by moving to Meta Solutions. Some cost or less, and some. Yeah, I think in the end, a little too soon right now because it's coming in segments, but we may save a few dollars from LAC as well too. There's, I know we're in public session, so I want to be careful with this, but Meta Solutions is a more comprehensive service provider, so there's means of scale. I think that we'll realize there's some, honestly, and we'll do a better analysis. I can't do it off the top of my head right now, but There's some aspects that are more money, some that are cheaper. I think when it aggregates, it'll be a little less money. Beyond that, it'll be a more comprehensive service school district. Nothing against LAC, but medically more comprehensive where we're headed and where we're moving from our current position. I'd say.
Call the roll. Oh, we have comments.
What does it say in that?
Yeah,
Through
2025.
Yep.
Modify that.
This always, we go through these agendas and we send them out, we draft. Inevitably, it's always something, right?
Yeah, the Power School to approve a contract with Power School in the amount of $19,567 for services provided beginning February 8th of 25 through February 7th of 2026.
Yep.
Yep. Okay.
Yep. So no, it's not a one-day contract.
No.
So it's okay.
Yeah.
1 day negative.
One day negative, right?
Not gonna make it.
All right, call the roll, please.
Mrs. Davis,
Yes.
Mrs. Thomas,
Yes.
Mr. Swager,
Yes.
Mr. Benton,
Yes.
Mrs. Boer.
Yes.
Resolution 25-01016 is a maintenance vehicle purchase.
If I can get a motion,
I'll motion.
and if we can get a second.
I'll second.
Total cost on this, and this would be a van for our maintenance department, is $47,990. We have, we're at end of life on our current van. We had some repairs that need to be conducted, and they're looking at the rust in the frame, and it's not long now for this world without significant work done. And quite honestly, because of the age of the vehicle and its condition, it's not worth taking it to a frame shop to have it, to have it.
It was in 96.
It's
Was the-
1996. Okay. One of the things that we do in this when we talk about the organizational meeting and state bidding, this is one of those things that we can do so you don't have to go out and do the three. So we work through our state bidding process. However, having said that, we've all been working on this, Mrs. Drummy, Mr. Jenny, and Mr. Busenberg and all. So everyone's been working through this. So we've been making sure it still is a good price. In fact, we were kind of surprised. But it's not, it's relatively stripped down, but it's effective for what we need as a school district. It actually, yeah, because when I came on in the summer of 22, it was in the queue. And if you remember, that was still the CHIPS matter. And then, because I know that's one of the first projects I worked on. And then what happened is it was back ordered, and eventually they couldn't even fill it. And then we just made things work. Food service has been helping. We've been using their box truck, using our box truck a little bit, but it's at the point now where we're going to lose this other vehicle. So.
All right, any other questions, comments? Call the roll.
Mrs. Thomas?
Yes.
Mrs. Davis?
Yes.
Mr. Benton?
Yes.
Mr. Swager?
Yes.
Mrs. Boer.
Yes.
All right. On to board comments. Any questions, comments for the board? I have the one. I know I spoke to a couple of you offline a little bit, but Mr. Busenberg, you and I spoke about this maybe 2, 3, 4 years ago, is the drug testing. I would like to explore that more as to how other schools are doing it for extracurricular sports, some of the other school districts in the area, what the cost is, who pays for that, how that's funded. If we could maybe as an administration get together, just look at that for next year or the year after. It's something we're aware of being problematic. We've seen some school districts in the area that do testing, and I'd be curious to see how that runs and works. I don't know the details. I know the City of Newark Schools does extensive random testing. I'd like to see just kind of comprehensive of the area, who does it, how it works, what it costs in general, so the board can actually have a discussion about possibly implementing
Policies around it.
policies around
That's going to be
we
the
already
first
have a policy in place. We have a policy in place that allows us to do it. That's already on, we used to do it here, years ago. But I think everyone's aware there is a very, very serious vaping problem and a lot of THC in those vapes. So that's something that we are looking at to try to figure out how to get a handle on it as a district and for a community here. So I'd like to look into it and see what's possible and what the ramifications would be. So I would ask that we look into that.
Yeah, I have some familiarity with this. I've done this before, and then, as you said, Mrs. Davis, policy we'll look at, and guidelines. That'll be the big piece. And there's some ways to manage this, but we'll look at some exemplar models in the area as well too, because we'll look at student body, also athletes is another one that's.
Yeah,
you know,
from ones I've seen, it's all extracurriculars. I've seen
Yeah.
where if you get a parking pass, you have to, there's been different
Yeah.
things at different schools. I'd be curious to see how that works.
Yep, we will get that, make that one of our objectives.
Anything else from any of the board members? Back to you.
Sure, just a couple things. I'll skip the year in review because we covered that already. I want to minimize it. Next is, a lot of recognition recently for late President Carter. Wanted the board to know that there was National Day of Mourning. So each of our school buildings started their morning announcement with a statement about Carter and provided that to all the students. A minute to reflect on that. School supplies. Just wanted to give you an update. Generally, things are going well, but what we're going to do for you is get a work session, and we'll do a deep analysis on that and say, okay, here's exactly how it, everything monetizes through this process, and also look at the usage and how we're, there's always lessons learned with this, and then eventually bring a recommendation back. I know when the board said this was a 1 year, so we haven't lost sight of that. So we'll do a study and want the board to give us
I'm sure
input.
that, I'm sure this will be a part of it, but I would love to know, are things holding up? Are we having to replace a lot of things?
There are some things that aren't, last year, if you recall, we were late in the process, where there was a lot of work done this. And I know Mrs. Wagner's talked about headphones. We had to buy some that were shipped at a certain time. Those are, the failure on those is significantly high. So those will be something to look at. And we'll get that all for you. We'll get you. Yeah.
What was available?
Well, yeah. And the idea will be that if we do this again for the next year, if the board approves that, we want to get that process completed before the end of the school year.
Right.
So in that way, like anything else, whether it's technology or whatever.
I'd say if we can get it done by March,
Sure.
because I also want to let parents know if we're doing it again. And give them
Well,
plenty
and we
of
talked
time
about
and
Prime
know.
Days and
Yep.
stuff, like last year, because it's not that the parents have to buy this, but they might want some other things. And if we're buying it, they don't have to worry about that. So.
And I
Yeah.
know that
Wow.
and I know there was a lot of last minute scramble on staff, administrators to get stuff into classrooms. So I'm sure teachers would love to have a system and even get volunteers in if needed so that they're feeling good about it.
Yep, so we'll get you an update as we wanted to just let you know we didn't forget about that, so that's coming, and the year's going quickly, as we know, already in 2025, so we'll want to get on top of it. I like the idea of getting it sooner rather than later. Cornell School, I didn't bring your resolution tonight because we're still working on it, but Cornell, the Friends of Cornell voted, and they want to donate the entire Cornell School to the school district. That would then become one of our buildings. We would have control of it. It would go into the system, and we would see it as any other building. There's also a lease or rental option we're looking at with the Friends of Cornell School. So we're working on those details. They just didn't want to rush it for tonight. So we thought perhaps, but there's some legalities with this too. Nothing onerous or really heavy, but there's not even a title for that building. So there's a process we have to go through. And
Yeah, I mean, because it got moved. The school owns the land.
Yeah.
The building was donated,
Yeah.
so I'm sure it's
Yeah.
a little more confusing than
It is.
Not that there was ever any mischievous going. It was just the way it was handled is not quite documented as well as we would like.
Exactly, and if we're taking it on, we want to make sure everything is buttoned up and that it truly comes to us without any concerns. And so we're working on that. So I'll probably have something to you at the February meeting to vote on. They voted last month, being the Friends of Cornell School, and they're kind of anxious to move this along. Mr. Busenberg and I talked, and I asked him to contact leadership there, which he did, and told them this wouldn't be in front of the board until at least February. But we asked them for any maintenance issues or anything, because we can kind of slowly or softly start to transition now. So, and right now they responded, they didn't have anything immediately, but we'll start working on that, the transition. That's one of the things we want to talk about with them too. Is what are what are they going to do with their reserves, because they have that, and then what will they do also if they generate new monies, if they're we're leasing it to them and they have other schools come in. So that's some of the work needs to be done as well, the financials. But I'll tell you, very, very excited, very cooperative. So appreciate the partnership. Power School breach, data breach, we already talked about that. Unless there's any other questions. That I just want to reinforce, it's a third-party vendor, but again, it impacts our school district as well as this is nationwide concern. Just lastly, I just want to compliment everyone coming back from the winter break. Got a lot of work done over the winter break, so we had some time off. Snow day wasn't a bad thing, it was for some people. Although I had a couple parents email me, tell me not to cancel school. That's true. Yeah, a couple of communications. Just when there was the potential, the weather was coming, and then we even had the delayed start the next day. But things have gone really well with reopening the school district, and it's after 2 weeks off like that, it's a challenge. But we're back in the swing of it, and I think the break was really needed for a lot of people. So that's all I have, unless there's questions from the board.
Anything? All right. With that, can I get a motion to adjourn?
I'll motion.
And can I get a second?
I'll second. Alan?
Call the roll.
Mrs. Thomas?
Yes.
Mrs. Boer?
Yes.
Mr. Benton?
Yes.
Mrs. Davis?
Yes.
Mr. Swager?
Yes. Meeting's adjourned. 7:42. Good evening.